Welcome back. You're still watching Daybreak on the 16th day of March 2026. In studio have Fred Okango, Robert Mboi and Wilson Sossion. We're still expecting Gitonga Mukunji, Member of Parliament for Manyata constituency, Embu County. But also this morning we're talking about the different ways the government is looking into to finance the programs or projects, specifically development projects. With the National Infrastructure Fund, it is now law that national infrastructure will be financed through that, and the government will use resources from privatization, in this case, for instance, the Kenya Pipeline Company and the Safaricom divestiture, which will bring about 140 billion shillings. The KPC will bring in about 106 billion shillings. The government thinks that it is possible to finance to the capacity of 10 times that seed capital. So if that is about 350 billion shillings, then the government thinks it can use up to 3.5 trillion shillings to finance different programs. The other thing I was telling you is about the law that was signed into law on Friday last week by President William Ruto, the Kenya Railway Development Levy, rather the Miscellaneous Fees and Levies Amendment Act, which allows for the Railway Development Levy to become a fund, and that fund will have a board, and that board will now manage those resources with the possibility of financing projects by taking loans, or whatever you may want to call it, securitization if you like, of up to 90% of the resources. As of the year 2024-2025, the Railway Development Levy collected about 36.8 billion shillings for that year. Mheshimiwa Mboi, I'll begin with you on this one, on your views about the new way of financing government programs and projects.
Thank you, Sam. You know, there's a lot of lip service that is being peddled out there by some of our leaders, and they make it look like we are somehow getting to become richer, and Kenya is getting a lot of money from thin air. Mm-hmm. And I said this on the floor of the House, that money must be coming from somewhere. Now, all these programs, Sam, that you're talking about, they go against one of even the 10-point agendas of the ODM party and the UDA, which is the issue of public debt. Every single program here, Sam, is actually about borrowing. When you talk about securitization, basically it is borrowing that money in advance. Because instead of collecting railway development levy slowly, you will collect it slowly, but you can securitize it. That means you can borrow in advance on that stream of revenue. Mm-hmm. And that is exactly what they did also with the road maintenance levy, which puts us at loggerheads with even our constituents, because we are constantly unable to do the roads as we were doing before, because a lot of that money has already been securitized. But some allow me to talk about this National Infrastructure Fund, because that is what has been shocking me. I listened to the leaders on the floor of the House, and they made it sound like once you pass that fund, suddenly Kenya will be rich, will be doing mega infrastructure programs. And I want to give an analogy that will simplify it even for our viewers. That you have a salary, and you receive your salary in your account. And based on what you receive in your salary, you can try and make your ends meet. But then suddenly, you want to do a major program. For example, you want to start create a sprinkling system so that you can make your grass look greener than your neighbors. And you don't have the money. You don't actually have the money for it. So what we are being told by this government is that if you open a new bank account, suddenly you'll have the money to do this. That's actually the bottom line. Because a fund there is no money yet. The money has to be put into that fund. So it's just like a bank account. If you open a new bank account, unless you put some money there, yep, there will be no money in that account. So where is the money coming from? Now, you've opened a new bank account. You had a cow that you used to milk and sell this milk to educate your children, to pay for your medical bills. Suddenly, the alternative you have is to sell that cow, put that money in the account so that you can have a sprinkling system. But after that, what happens when somebody is sick in that house? What happens when fees are due? That is exactly what is happening. Now, when you create funds, every fund has a purpose. And most of the funds that we create in the country, actually all the funds, the real source is normally the exchequer. We came up with a fund for, military equipment fund. Basically, that was for these missions that they go abroad on peacekeeping missions. And it had seed capital, I think, of about $1 billion or $2 billion. And every one of those funds, you have one for wildlife, I don't know what. There are so many funds. All of them basically are supported from the exchequer. But this particular fund, we are told now, this one, we are not taking money from the exchequer, but we'll have so much money, we'll be able to do so much more. But the intent is to sell Kenya Pipeline, put the money in there, sell Safaricom, put the money in there. Just before that, we had passed a privatization bill and the government-owned enterprises bill. So all these government-owned enterprises, money they will be sold, and the money will be put into that kitty. That is the real intention. But more importantly, what Kenyans need to understand is that the money that is being put there from Safaricom and Kenya Pipeline is not the only money that they will be using. They will borrow against it. So the money again increases. And we are talking about public debt going up. This is a way of borrowing without going through Treasury, through the back door. You are increasing public debt because if you are borrowing, like now, Sam, you just said that we'll collect about 300 billion and then multiply 10 times. How does money multiply? I mean, unless you're doing wash. This is the intention is to borrow. And imagine you're borrowing 10 times the amount that is there. Even if it's private investors that are putting in their money, they are expecting to recoup from the money they put in there. So basically, for me, I think we have a real problem here. But more importantly, on this particular bill,
is it possible to do wash with government?
No, I'm just saying that the minute you say that you have 300 billion and you can turn it into 3 trillion, I mean, you're borrowing. That's basically it. Unless you're doing wash, you're borrowing. And that's what everybody has been running away from that. On the floor of the House, all the leaders ran away from the issue that they're borrowing.
Are you telling me Parliament, you don't understand that when you're...
We did, and we explained it, and we were told, no. The minute you have this fund, the minute you have this account, there'll be a lot of money in it to be able to do mega projects, we'll be able to do airports, and I'm thinking, where will the money come from? That's a real question. Where does the money come from? But when you talk about Parliament and what happened, what shocked me is that the House rejected plans to make sure that we have power over the management of that kit. I mean, I was very shocked. I thought Parliament is supposed to be a house that is supposed to oversight and ensure that we safeguard the expenditure of public funds, that we safeguard how the money is spent. But we attempted to make amendments to that law, Sam, and they were rejected, only to come to realize later that a text had come from one of the whips in the House to the members and told them, now, we are not accepting any amendment except the ones that are coming from, I think, the committee itself. And then I wonder to myself, if you're saying you'll only listen to committee, whatever amendments, what about the amendments that are coming from elected leaders that have also taken time to understand the law and that are actually supposed to make it even better? We were asking, for example, Sam, that why don't we get quarterly reports? If you're talking about a fund that will end up with about 5 trillion, yep, that's bigger than the national budget. Why don't you give us quarterly reports so that we can at least know what you're doing? And it was rejected on the floor, and people said, no. If you do that, then you're going to start... I think there's this thing, this concept that members of Parliament will be twisting the executive and probably soliciting for bribes, because that was the implication that I got. But then at the end of the day, I was asking myself, why would you be worried if anybody is to challenge you if you're not doing anything wrong? So this fund has started off on the wrong footing. When it was being peddled on the floor of the House, it was clear that the purpose of this fund is to deal with projects that are economically viable. But now, if you listen to what is happening, it has become now again a political slogan. That every place the president goes, he says now we are going to be doing projects based on that on that infrastructure fund. It's again multiplied more than what it was before.
But when you look at the law, forget about what the political class is saying, but when you look at the law, doesn't it safeguard that concept of commercially viable?
Yes, it does. It does, Sam. But you see, now what I'm saying is this, and I'm saying this so that our viewers can understand that, yes, it's supposed to be commercially viable projects, and that means probably a project that will be able to pay for itself. Now, when the president goes around and starts saying now it's going to sort out historical injustices. Yeah. How is that an economically viable program? You know, so I'm just saying that the whole thing is shrouded in a lot of mystery because a lot of Kenyans don't understand it. Okay. But now, a week or two after, about a week after it was signed into law, how much money, how many projects have started being constructed? Because when I listened to the leaders, the floor of the House, it was like it's an instant solution to Kenya's problems. But some, I will finally say that these major projects were done. We have an airport. It might not be perfect, but it was built a long time ago. We have had infrastructure that has been done in this country. This fund is not the solution. Okay. This is a way of running away from the exchequer.
Fred, what's your take? At least of the benefit of being outside Parliament.
Yes, and I have listened to Honorable Mbui. You know, Honorable Mbui today belongs to the opposition, so you would excuse him for some of the words he's using. And he is expected to oppose it. As a Kenyan out here, I have tried to interact with that act and just tried to pick some of the areas that, in my view, I think would help this country. As far as cushioning Kenyans from constant borrowing that has inflated our debt. And while the fund could experience challenges, and it was subjected to the people, they gave their views, including Honorable Mbui's people, I believe that there are some fundamental significant to this fund, particularly on financing infrastructure, the catalytic national infrastructure projects that you have just mentioned, some things to do with the highway, railway, ports, airports, power projects, these mega projects as articulated in Section 4A of that Act. Then number two, in terms of mobilizing private capital, bringing together some of these from non-conventional sources like buying in private capital, sovereign wealth, and so the rest. I think that also is a good thing from this fund and can help Kenyans. Then also there is debt that we have been talking about some, and this debt keep on going up. How do we reduce the country's over-reliance on the debts? Every time you want to do infrastructure, because everyone appreciates that infrastructure development is good, even those who don't want the country to borrow. We appreciate. But how do we now start cushioning Kenyans from payment of these high debts? I think, again, this fund has tried to cure that. Investment in projects through equity, again, is something that I have seen in this fund, that to me will be very important. If you go through Section 12E of the Act, again, it allows that. But lastly, disposal of investment. I know that when you try and make some of these laws, there will be challenges. The public will question. That's why we subject them through public participation. But there are also people who will say it is not going to work. I must say that for the first time in the history of this country, the government of the day is trying to be creative and innovative to ensure that where else can we get money so that we do mega projects that Kenyans would want to see. Kenyans, when they walk around, drive around, they are saying the roads are bad. They are saying the airport is leaking. They are saying the highways are not functional. They are saying the power lines are not functional. But when the government tries to borrow through the conventional means, the debt goes up. So this is an attempt by the government to try and ensure that some of this borrowing is reduced, over-reliance is reduced, and even so, we achieve the developmental agenda that we have always wanted to see.
When you don't borrow using the conventional methods, the debt doesn't go up?
No, it does. It does. But we are trying to see how innovative can we be so that we don't... How innovative can we be? Are there internal mechanisms we can use to ensure that we set up money that can be specifically for infrastructure development? This catalytic national infrastructure development that we are doing. So I know there could be challenges.
Have you thought about the cost of that innovation?
To get something best, it is expensive. Anything that is good must be expensive.
The question I'm asking is, have we thought about the cost of that innovation?
I think so. I think so. Because if you're going to build, let's say, a road that is 10 billion, for example, the first question you must ask yourself, where are you going to get the 10 billion? Are you going to levy it on the Kenyans who are already overburdened? Or are you going to use the resources that are within reach and a creative way to build that road? So I think this is the first attempt
Fred, let me
that the
explain
government is trying to do.
So at the moment, you use taxpayers' money to build, say, Thika Superhighway.
Or PPPs.
It's my example.
Yeah.
A Thika Superhighway. So it was constructed. Kenyans drive on it. To maintain it, you charge a levy called road maintenance levy, or the taxpayers' money.
Yes.
If you're to build a commercially viable superhighway, whatever, you are going to toll it. Toll for taxes.
Yeah.
So this commercially viable, they'll be tolled, isn't it?
Sure.
What will that mean to the cost of living for Kenyans?
The cost of living will go up. That's what it means. Because you are paying extra to maintain the service that you want.
And have we looked, that's what I'm asking, have we thought about that cost and how sustainable it will be? Because Kenyans who today drive freely on the roads, they only pay for the fuel they use. They'll now pay for the fuel and at the same time pay for the road they're using because you're going into these alternative, innovative ways.
I like your example of the road.
Yeah.
But also, let's help Kenyans by understanding that what are other infrastructure developments that they are not paying any toll or any levy? Are they there? When you build stadia, do you pay that? When you build airports, do you pay that? So I understand the predicament that we are in. But Sam, my concern is if we are to develop...
Sorry, you're losing me there.
I am saying...
What is the essence of those examples?
The examples I'm giving you, there is no direct payment by the user as the roads.
So what would make a stadium commercially viable?
You know, the stadia that we have, we use them for games purposes. And there's money that is collected as entry fees that goes to the management. But I'm talking about what is the actual benefit, the real benefit of having that infrastructure in a country. Where do we want to go with such mega projects? Is it that we are looking at what the public contribute in using the service or the infrastructure, or is it we're looking at the efficiency and the larger good of a country by having such infrastructure? For example, the study that is now on Ngong Road, the Talanta Stadia. What benefit does it have, such an iconic structure, to the country? We are now going to host AFCON. We have never done that. What is it, does it help to place Kenyans on the sports map as it is today? Is more significant. And the people of Kenya must contribute towards that.
It's more significant because...
Pardon?
It is more significant because?
In the sporting industry, it is more significant to the country. You are hosting AFCON. There's more to do with the tourism. There are funds coming to the country. There are visitors coming, hotels, roads being used. I mean, it is important. It is important.
Is it always a commercially viable venture to host a tournament?
Why would we look at it as a commercial venture? Why don't we look at it as an infrastructure that is going to help the people? The law says so, but not all those infrastructure must be commercially viable. Not all of them. No,
you see, Fred, I'm using your example.
Yes.
You've just told me that the Talanta Stadium will benefit the country because we'll host AFCON.
Of course it will.
Do you believe that the returns you'll get from hosting AFCON will be commensurate to the investment?
Do we believe that investing in such a bigger infrastructure is good for the country? Yes.
That's not the question I'm asking.
That is the answer to the question. Because when we want to consider them as commercial ventures, we lose it.
I appreciate it,
Sam. But that's what the law says.
I appreciate your answer to your question. But my question is, the investment we'll put into Talanta Stadium and the returns from AFCON, are they commensurate?
No. It will be commensurate.
Or how do you calculate
it will be commensurate not only when you consider AFCON, but when you consider other sporting activities and subsequent that will be coming towards that.
So there are projections to show
exactly.
I
believe by the time you put such an infrastructure, there should be return on investment, and they're subsequent, and some of them are long-term. So we are not looking at AFCON alone. We're looking at subsequent sporting activities. We're looking at what will it host? Where will they come from? Are there incomes that will come with, are there monies that will come with such infrastructure in the future?
Okay.
The answer is yes.
So do you know when you're going to break even?
I don't know that.
You don't know?
Yes.
Okay. You believe. Mheshimiwa Sossion, your thoughts about this innovative way of doing things, and particularly on that, the cost implication, because the lives of Kenyans are just about to change.
Yes, we must accept that all good things comes with cost, but we must have a plan that safeguards the economy and the future of Kenyans. For a long time, we've relied on taxes and external support through loans to finance development. And if we were going to fast track our infrastructure development program using taxes and borrowed money, it will take very many years to do that. And the alternative plan here has no correlation whatsoever with the taxes and budgets of the country.
How do you mean no correlation?
Yes, it has no correlation because this is not linked to the budget circles. The programs, investment programs under the budget circles excludes the programs within the National Infrastructure Fund because it is funded differently. These are more innovative, massive, and faster way of achieving infrastructure, whether it is roads, commercially viable highways that can sustain themselves and that you can recoup the funding that have been used in the investments. When we talk of power investment infrastructure, of course the country needs 10,000 megawatts to drive industrialization, but we have 2.3, and that's an area that requires massive investment. Airports infrastructure, is a fertile communication hub that we have in Kenya. Jomo Kenyatta International its potential is an entry gate to Africa,
yep.
and therefore it can viably expand itself and get more volumes of travelers and passengers. Our ports, our irrigation systems, and we can name and we can go on and on. Infrastructure that are commercially viable, they can sustain themselves, but then how do we achieve it? It is through this particular act. And if we stick to the provisions of the act and ensure delivery of these programs, then it is envisaged that within 10 years, it will have very great economic impact in the growth of our economy. And even the people at the bottom of the pyramid, the users of this infrastructure, will not find it difficult to operate and procure services from these facilities. So I think with this one...
What do you mean with that? What you just said?
What is the impact of more roads in the country? It means the economy...
No, use the example of the airport.
Yeah, for example, the airport.
You said people on the bottom of the pyramid will not have any problems.
Now, when you combine the sum economic effect, because this infrastructure, they don't exist for leisure and for leisure use. It has a lot of impact in the economic growth. And when the economy grows, the trickle-down effect in terms of economic potentiality will benefit all Kenyans in the long run, indirectly. So all this infrastructure are meant to fast-track and transform our economy. They're not just meant to benefit the users.
Question.
And in a situation where there is a faster stabilization and growth of the economy through this massive infrastructure work, then we have a better economy.
Question, Mheshimiwa Sossion.
Yes.
You've told me that highways that can sustain themselves. Do you have any studies showing how many people can actually pay for toll roads?
Who owns cars in this country? People who can afford. And you know, in an economy,
so
it's about affordability.
Can afford.
People who say, for example, utilize other products in this country.
No.
It's about...
Mheshimiwa Sossion.
Yes.
You're saying that people who own cars they can afford toll roads?
Yes, of course. If they are told we are using the expressway, who uses the expressway? You choose to use the expressway or not to, based on affordability. And the more people who will afford, when the economy improves, then there are more people who will afford to use those particular infrastructure. When you look at in terms of the long-term economic transformation, all this infrastructure will be enablers for the citizens even to utilize these facilities. If we talk of airport transport, for example, Jomo Kenyatta Airport is a global strategic communication hub handling some millions of passengers annually. And if that is expanded to do more work and to handle more cargo, more transport, then it means it will generate more revenue, and it will even make air transport more convenient and even more affordable. So if we are here to discuss the long-term economic impacts, the returns are greater. And that is why...
You're assuming,
and that is, yes.
You're assuming that once the airport is expanded, everyone is willing to pay for it. But you're forgetting also, for that to happen, you have to raise the fees. It has to be more expensive so that you're able to pay for the commercially viable...
Well, one fact we have to tell Kenyans, Sami, is that in a competitive, strong economy, nothing comes for free. Let us not push an agenda that what is being done will bring things and services free to the people. It's a competitive economy.
Surely, so
this is a capital economy. And therefore, when you are talking about making our economy competitive, and we have an infrastructure master plan that must be achieved in 10 years in terms of roads, power, airports, ports, and
that's
irrigation.
A very good point that you go into.
Irrigation.
About competitive economy, and still sticking with the question of airport, because there are a few things that you've said there that are interesting. Is there a possibility that we might actually work ourselves out of competition if we make Jomo Kenyatta International Airport more expensive than what is in the region?
For those of us who have traveled around the world and those who have used Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, we know this is a main entry port to many countries in Africa. Those investors in South Sudan, Congo and DR and everywhere else, they must keep their money in Nairobi and enter Africa through Jomo Kenyatta. It's a strategic airport. And if there is anything that we need to do is to expand it now and expand it using any means. And therefore, the national infrastructure, yes, using any means to make it work.
You're missing my question. I'm asking, is it possible? Because if it to be told, I mean, it's a commercially viable, meaning that it has to have a return and it has to be properly calculated. Yes. Is there a possibility that we might negotiate ourselves out of competition if you had to compare with what is in the region, Ethiopia, Kigali?
We definitely will not negotiate ourselves out of the competition. And this calls for effective quality decisions that are going to make the airport competitive. We have the potentiality. And we have the opportunity to do it. And in all these transformative programs and investments, it is meant to make us competitive. But it is not meant to eliminate ourselves from the transport business within the region. Is it possible that we can make Jomo Kenyatta International Airport more competitive than Bolins in Ethiopia and all other airports within the region so that nobody can avoid using our facility? And the only way we need to do this within the 10-year framework plan, and this is a plan for the country, it's a plan for the people of Kenya, it is a plan to make our country economically competitive. We must do our airports now. And we cannot do it through the taxes. We cannot borrow money to do that. And it is the NIF fund that is going to provide this. We must do our railways now. And that is that. And any country, any strong economy, you check out whether in Asia or in the global north, the rail infrastructure system is so effective to allow quick and effective movement of goods and services, and these are necessary, inevitable areas of investments, and the financing and even the repayment of any money put within the investment will not be raised from the taxes.
Okay.
These infrastructure installations themselves will be able to generate revenue to sustain and to pay any funding that is put in these particular investments. And this is how Asia is developed.
No, I
go to Malaysia. I've been to Malaysia myself, and Malaysia was not developed using taxes. It was developed using such a model. Instead of going to Washington and to the World Bank to go and borrow money for a road, and that road is commercially viable, you must have an alternative, innovative way that gives you independence.
All right.
And what is required here, and what Kenyans should question, is that we want prudent management of these particular programs and timely delivery of these projects. And we would like to see results, even as we pay the tolling for the roads, even as more money put in power. We would like to see power production go up in this country, more manufacturing. And the long-term effect of all these, any economy is about infrastructure.
Thank you.
Good investment in infrastructure.
Stop at that point, because you need to make progress. And I hear what you're saying, but there's a question you have not answered me about how sustainable it would be, how many people can pay for it. You've referred me to how many people use the expressway. There are a few figures here and there, say about 100,000 users daily. Well, 100,000 versus, I don't know what is the population of cars in the country, but also the population of...
But what will be the volume of users of Jomo Kenyatta International Airport in terms of millions? It's projected that
that's a projection.
There will be more passengers and more utilization. And that utilization...
I'm not denying that.
Business.
Please, Mheshimiwa Sosion, you had your time to express yourself. I'm just summing up so that you can move on. So there is a question there to be answered about how many people can pay for toll roads across the country, because it is not just the expressway. There are many roads that are being talked about that would be considered for commercial viability. At the same time, like I had indicated, the railway development levy, that will become a fund. And I just want very quick feedback about this. Mheshimiwa Mbui, still trying to locate the actual signed law that was signed by the president. But clearly you can see that establishment of the fund, a board, the possibility of that securitization. What is the dream, if you know it?
Let me first say that, Rome wasn't built in a day. Even Singapore wasn't built in a day. And what I find interesting is that when you join government, and I hope this doesn't happen to some of us, you stop caring for the general public, You suddenly are up there and you seem to be disconnected from the real problems that people are facing. If you allow me, I'll have some challenges that I have observed from my two colleagues here. And some serious contradictions. Fred is a strategic advisor, and I was shocked because some of the things he has said today, if the person who gave him that opportunity is listening, they'll be in shock. Now, you say that we don't want to over-rely on debt, but then you form a fund and then you use the fund to borrow. So basically, what are you saying? You say that we are coming up with innovative ways of raising money, and one of them is to go to the private investors. We have a public-private partnership programs that have been in existence. So what's the difference? I would like someone to tell me what's the difference, between PPP and what you're saying, that the money is put, a little bit seed capital is put in the fund, then public investors can top up and then do projects. I mean, it's more or less the same thing. Then you're saying now for this one, once you have the NIF, you have money specific for infrastructure, cannot be used for anything else. What is the purpose of the National Assembly and the budget-making process? You have been, Sosion has been a member of Parliament, he knows. It is Parliament that appropriates funds for recurrent expenditure and for development. Development, infrastructure. So basically, there's nothing really new. Then now, what I see here is that it's like you're borrowing from different accounts. You're borrowing, you have opened 3-4 accounts and you're borrowing from all of them, so that you pretend that the amount you're borrowing is little. Because when you borrow through the consolidated fund, it's clear that this is the amount of money that you've borrowed. But if you create more funds and each of them is borrowing, you're still borrowing. It's the same thing. Now, one of the conditions, and I think Fred needed to understand this, one of the conditions for funding under the NIF is that the project must be commercially viable.
Yes.
And we asked that as Parliament we be involved in confirming that. Of course, that was never allowed, but we'll be auditing at the end of the operation period and see whether the projects are actually, funded, are commercially viable. But some has just said it, that for it to be commercially viable, it means that when you put it up, it pays for itself. How does a project pay for itself? Because the users will be paying for it. Now, you know what? When you address this matter, you said that we are not funding these things from you said taxes, but even levies are just a part of taxation, because if you're levying or if you're making me pay, it's the same pocket. Whether you call it a tax or a levy, it's the same thing. So at the end of the day, it's just a cost to the general public. And that's what we are saying. We must be careful. But Sossion, at least you have agreed that all good things come at a cost. But I said in Parliament that Kenya is becoming an experimental guinea pig. Why? Because first and foremost, when this regime came into power, the first thing they did was increased taxation and really hurt Kenyans. And suddenly, when there was a lot of revolt and a lot of noise, they decided, no, let us now go back to borrowing, which they had said they will not. So they reached the borrowing ceiling. They can't borrow anymore. So they come up with innovative ways of borrowing. Now, when you get these slogans of securitization, that's borrowing. When you get things like the infrastructure fund, that's borrowing. But at the end of the day, for me, what I would say is that if you find yourself in a hole, Sossion and strategic advisor Fred, stop digging. We are in a hole as a country.
So
you're digging us into a worse position.
Please get to my question.
I'm getting there.
No, you're taking too long. Look, this law that the president signed came to Parliament for first reading on the 12th of February. On 10th of March, you passed it. And it was signed on the 13th, Friday the 13th. Why so fast? But also, what is the reasoning behind agreeing to form a railway development levy fund and board?
Let me say, it was under the miscellaneous levies
and fees act
and fees bill, and some I will say that the executive is always very keen in fast-tracking any bill that concerns taxation or collection of fees, so that by the time it has passed, maybe the Gen Zs may not have noticed it, because they would be very careful that the Gen Zs don't get to know they want to levy some more and come for them. But I will say that, again, it's the same thing. The idea behind this is to form a fund, create a board. And this is the same thing I keep saying. You know, when you talk about a fund, Sam, please remember I said it is just like an account. So you're opening an account so that you can put money from Railway Development Fund levy into that account. But what is the idea? Separate it, put it in an account, then use that account to borrow. That is the idea. But my problem with all this is this, and this is what I also said about the road maintenance levy fund. The minute you borrow against it, yes, you will have a quick fix. You'll be able to do some project right now. But what happens when it comes to maintenance of our railways? In the future, you suddenly have no money. And that is why you will end up coming up with higher costs of travel, either by road or by air, yep, or by rail. So I think in the long-term process is that we are making Kenya a very expensive country to live in. And that is what my fear is. And that's what my concern is. And I think the problem is that, yes, we'll do these things, get quick fixes, walk around, say we are doing this. But what happens 5-10 years down the road when Kenyans cannot afford to put food on the table, educate their children, feed their families? You know, so we must be fair to Kenyans.
Okay. Mheshimiwa Sossion, you see, this railway development levy, if you're to use the example of RMLF, road maintenance levy, it's supposed to be maintaining roads, but now it's being borrowed against to actually construct, not to maintain. For this railway development levy, aren't we setting ourselves up for future challenges? Because when much of what is being collected will be going to paying debts, what will we do to do the development work it was intended?
I think, Sami, the problem we have as Kenyans and what is coming out is that we have phobia to do the right things. The question is, do we need railway network in this country? Yes. What has happened with the 1 meter gauge railway that was built in 1900? Has it significantly been sustained and expanded? No. We are on the standard gauge, and which is part of the wider Africa network infrastructure. And as a country, for us to reap benefits from this network, we must invest in it and deliver and have a working railway circuit. And as I told you, very good economies must have effective and efficient railway networks for movement of volumes of goods and movement of people. And Kenya is not an exception. And reorganizing the railway infrastructure system, including the RDL, is one of the missions of upgrading our railway network. The question you have asked, then we have an option not to do it. If we don't do it, then what happens? We'll continue remaining in the same infrastructure mess. And that is a sure road to growth, expanded poverty in the country.
You know, I like what you're saying, but, so, like I told you, 36 billion shillings has been collected 2024-2025.
Yes.
That is the financial year ending June 2025. What can you show for it? Because it's not like we don't have this levy. It's there, it's existent. We've been collecting it. What have we been doing with it?
Now, the question you're asking is about accounting. And those are things now we need to deal with. That then we have this RDL. What has it done? And of course, the board is not yet in place.
No.
It has not been...
it was a levy since 2013.
Yes, it was. I can't speak for Treasury how the money has been collected, what it has done, but what it ought to do, and of course, establishment of the board and operationalization, you know, that is yet to be done, and recommencement of construction of the standard gauge railway, you know, it's recommencing. So really, we must appreciate the fact that our railway development network had stalled for a long time, and the move to bring back and redevelop is a step in the right direction. And this will not be done through collection of taxes and appropriation in Parliament. We must have a self-sustaining funding itself. In fact, RDL is more like NIF, so that then you don't need to rely on the taxes that are collected and budgeted in Parliament, which also most of it goes to recurrent, and you can't save anything for development, and we are not going to wait for 100 years to build the railway. We must do it now. And so the big question that we must ask around all these funds, including the RDL, is accountability and delivery, which the buck now goes back to Parliament. Parliament has oversight committees, and it has power to oversight the work of the executive, be in public clear and in public gallery. This country has an independent office via the new constitution, the Comptroller and Auditor General, and the reports are key. The challenge that Mbui and Parliament should be having now is how to make Parliament effective in oversighting the executive to ensure that this RDL delivers. Okay. It is not Gituku who is going to do it. It is not the citizens. It is the institution that has been given constitutional mandate and authority. And I know there is a transport committee of the National Assembly. They can summon the Ministry of Transport, the Minister for Roads. They can summon these entities for accounting.
All right.
And I think going into the future, let us not fear doing what is right. Building our roads, building our railways, our airport, and getting new funds that will fast-track development. But then we should ensure that there is accountability, timely delivery, and what is delivered must sustain themselves to the advantage of citizens. And citizens will have to choose.
Thank you, Mheshimiwa Sossion.
If you want to use an expressway, it is your choice. If you don't want, it's a matter of choice. So utilizations of goods and services in any economy becomes a choice and affordability. So the forces of economy will work.
You keep driving me towards like you're concluding, then you start again. Let me take a look at the feedback that has come to us at Citizen TV Kenya. Asam Gituku, the hashtag to use the Citizen Daybreak on what Kenyans are saying about what you're talking about. Biraro Leonard, if the government can implement our national financial budgets very well, we don't need National Infrastructure Fund. NIF is a conduit of corruption, just like SHA and housing levy. Let the government avoid opulence. We will have enough money for development. It cannot be a reality with Kenya Kwanza. Bobo, we know the public projects financing is another crafty way that government wants to siphon money from public offers and to try to bring back Adani through the back door at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport renovations. Franco Rinde, public infrastructure should uplift the nation, not hide behind opaque financing structures. Critical questions on transparency, accountability, and who ultimately bears the cost must be addressed well. Kenyans deserve clarity on how public projects are funded. And finally, Owino Michael, this NIF will not work at all. The government focus is to reduce dependence on foreign loan, which they have been continuously looting. Why should we trust them with selling our assets in the name of development? Defending this government is not easy. Those are just some of the Kenyans who are watching us and have a few things to say about it. There is Samuel Owoth who says that establishing an infrastructure fund to finance public projects shows long-term vision and commitment to sustainable development. Investing in roads, energy, water, public facilities will strengthen our economy and improve the lives of millions. Quite varied reactions from the people. But as we do that, and Fred, I want you to come in on this, we may be busy talking about the funds we're establishing or the alternative, innovative ways of financing our development agenda. But at the same time, we still have a budget. I think the current financial is about 4.6 trillion shillings. We are borrowing a trillion, more than a trillion actually. It will be borrowed to finance part of the expenditure, which is recurrent, a little bit about development. We're using close to 2 trillion shillings to finance or to service our debt, whether it's repaying or paying the interest. But also, the control of budget is telling us that there are certain cost centers that are going beyond what they should. State House, for instance, spent 93% of its recurrent expenditure, which should have covered the whole 12 months, that was spent in just 6 months. The Office of the Deputy President spent 91% of their recurrent expenditure in just 6 months. And you're seeing nearly 300 million shillings being spent by the Presidency, Office of the Deputy President, Office of the President, and State House going to buying fuel for cars. We are seeing State House, for instance, spending more than 407 million shillings on domestic travel. So, Fred, austerity measures, then this?
Thank you, Sam. First of all, let me start from acknowledging that the Auditor General report is the surest way of knowing whether public funds have been used lawfully and efficiently. So that is a fact as provided for in law. But I don't want to narrow down onto the areas that you have given as examples, because the Auditor General highlights significant challenges with how public money has been spent. Not only in those areas, in so many areas.
The figures are cited according to the control of budget.
Yes.
You have a problem with that?
No, the control of budget, sorry. There are quite a number of areas. I don't have a problem with that because there are figures from the control of budget. But I'm asking myself...
Sorry, so the argument with Auditor General value for money, where are you going with that?
I am saying there is a significant challenge with how public funds are spent in so many departments, even in county government. But the question I'm asking myself, Sam, is whether they are cited from Auditor General or control of budget. The issue is, what is the cost of bringing services to the people? What is the cost of ensuring that the public enjoy what they need in terms of expenditure? That question, we need to answer it. I acknowledge again that there are instances where money has been misappropriated, and there are channels to ensure that that money is recovered, those people who are involved are punished. But let's understand also, I'll give an example today. If there's been money that has been, excessive money that has been used in a specific department or a specific ministry or a specific agency, is there show for the value for that money? If there is none, then that is wrong. If there is...
So let me ask you this, because you have a lot of what-ifs. It is a reality, because the Controller of Budget compiles the report based on reports from the user departments.
Yes.
In this case, the controller at State House reported, as the accounting officer, reported to the Controller of Budget, this is how we have used the money you sent us. And I am telling you, out of a budget of 8.58 billion shillings that should have lasted between July 2025 and June 2026, 93% was spent by December. Is there a problem with that?
Okay. Spent on what? To do what? That's the question.
54% went to other expenses.
Other expenses. Have they listed what are these other expenses? Were they to the benefit of the people? I don't know. But what I'm saying is that anytime you spend money that is meant for the public, what is the return of investment of that money towards the public? Are the public benefiting from it? If there are public members, that's the audit report should show that. So if there are reports showing that this money was actually spent in a prudent manner, then that is a good thing. But if there are reports showing that money was spent in a manner that is wasteful, then it is bad.
You believe in the Constitution?
Yes, I do.
You believe in budget making?
Yes, I do.
So when a budget is passed by Parliament by June 2025, and by the third month of the financial year, the user department is already spending 59% of their resources.
Sam, I'm not disputing the report.
I am not saying you're disputing.
Yeah, I'm just telling you.
Just listen to the question, you'll give me an answer. If 59% is spent by the third month, if 93% is spent by the sixth month, what is prudence there?
I am saying that report, that's what it shows. But what is the essence? What was the rationale of spending that money earlier than expected? Were there increased activities? That's the question we're asking. Were there activities that demanded that such amount of money should be spent to the benefit of the people? I believe so. So in my view, I'm trying to explain to you that sometimes some of these reports come out. It's the reality of the report. But what is the justification of such expenditure to the benefit of the people? That's what I'm saying. Today, you can cite so many reports that money was used in a manner that is not prudent. True. But is there such justification that that money was actually used in a manner that is to the benefit of the people? I have not read that report, but I'm just giving a principle of expenditure of public funds. Number two, we are also aware that some of these expenditures are very costly to the people of Kenya. Because for you to achieve whatever plan you have, you must do it in an efficient manner and in an effective manner. If that what demands money to be used, then so be it. But I am afraid that the instances where money has been blatantly misappropriated, and it has been used in a manner that is not in accordance with the principle of public finance.
Okay.
Those instances.
All right, Fred. I want us to hear from Fred Matiang'i, who is a former Cabinet Secretary Interior. He has a few things to say about the expenditure at State House.
How can State House need more money than Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital? The State House is not a referral hospital. Hakuna surgery inafanya huko. Kuna watoto wanasaliwa huko. Hakuna kidney transplant inafanya State House. Why do you need 17 billion?
Well, we'll look at history, because State House has actually spent more than 17 billion shillings before, especially in the final year of President Uhuru Kenyatta in office. I'll get the particular figure. But Honorable Mbui, why then do you budget? Is there need?
Some of the questions you ask, they're very difficult to answer. Is there need? Of course, there's need, but I mean, it's a shocker. But allow me to first say that, we must also realize that we are discussing this at the time when ODM and UDA had a meeting about the 10-point agenda. And some of these issues, like public debt was one of them. We've just canvassed and realized that they are continuing to dig even better now. They've got better equipment for digging than before. Now, one of the other issues I think that Raila Amolo Odinga was very particular about was wastage of public resources, and that's what is happening now. You cannot consume your total annual budget in 6 months. And I'll tell you why I have a problem with that. One of the reasons is that naturally the Treasury doesn't have the total amount of money at the beginning of the year. And so what Treasury does is that they release money in sometimes monthly, sometimes quarterly, so that they can finance government programs over the period of the year.
Right.
So that by the time they're releasing the last monies of that financial year, it's at the tail end of the financial year. My question is, how was it possible for Treasury to release almost 100% of the funds for State House within the first 6 months? That is a shocker, because then it means that the executive, that the office of the president is controlling Treasury. If Treasury was supposed to release money in quarterly bits, they would only have reached 50%. Now, secondly, if you look at the reason the budget was quite inflated this year, there was a lot of renovation projects that were supposed to take place in all these state lodges. And basically, very little has been done. Where is this money going? You're hearing that there is something they're calling other expenses. Other expenses are those that some have said are not budgeted for. And they think they can justify. So far, we haven't been told exactly what it is. But if you look at the amount of money that they've spent around dishing out handouts in all our villages, maybe that is what part of that money was used for. So that means that it has actually gone against the PFM Act, because if you're given money for certain activities, you cannot divert it and use it for others. And I'm really waiting keenly to see exactly what they will say about where that money went to. But some remember one of the other issues that we had at the beginning of this political conflict and competition was the issue of the display of opulence. Now, the government has received some money from the World Bank to help support our youth. But what is shocking, and that's maybe one of the other areas where they're wasting money, is that the executive is traveling in huge convoys, you know, is sending 10 choppers to the far-flung corners of the country to go meet a few select youth that are qualifying to get 22,000 shillings. But they are spending millions in order to be able to do that. That is opulence. That is wastage of public resources. Why not let the CS for cooperatives and trade go and do that work by himself? Because then the CS doesn't require an entourage of 50 fuel guzzlers. It doesn't require huge contingents of police officers to guard him. And by the way, Sam, I think the president could have launched that program in a national function, one function, and probably in the presence of the CS so that they finish it there. Then they cascade it out to the government. The government goes all the way up to the village. Why does the president himself have to go to every corner of the country? The other thing I've noted is there's constant delegations to State House. And I'm happy someone went to court and said, you cannot be using, State House for political, meetings. The recent PG that was actually held in KICC, which was very decent. Because previously they would be doing functions at State House, calling delegations from each corner of the country for political handouts, for political statements, and they would use that house negatively. So basically, I think I'm happy that at least the court made a decision. But finally,
so you think handouts will happen at State House? They can't happen at KICC?
No, they'll happen. No, well, let me not talk about the one of KCC, because those were my colleagues and my very good friends. And so I won't say what they told me after they came back.
No, you can tell us. I mean, you're being objective here,
today I won't say. Today I won't say it, but maybe you need to invite those that were there. I think 3 of us were not there.
So something happened?
Well, I know after the meeting ended, it took a while before they got back to the house. So I don't know what consultations were taking place before they come.
Was there traffic? Or what?
You just walk across from KICC to Parliament, but if it takes about an hour and a half, 2 hours, obviously there is some transaction taking place. Maybe they were having those short conversations.
How much was it?
No. This time I didn't get the figure. I got contradicting figures, so I won't say it.
No,
but my concern is not about our members.
You cannot believe
my
on
concern.
propaganda.
You're becoming an unreliable source. No, Fred, the reason I'm asking that question is because Mheshimiwa Kagusha, John Kagusha from Kuriri, is on record on this show telling us that once they went for parliamentary group meetings at State House, they'd go home with 100,000 shillings. He said that on the show.
Was that confirmed?
He attended that meeting. He said it.
That is his word against somebody's.
I'm telling you what he said.
Yeah, but
I'm not arguing about
true?
it.
Is it
That's
true?
what Mheshimiwa Kagusha said.
It might not be true. He might be blending the truth.
That's your opinion. Go ahead.
Okay, so anyway, so I'm just saying that we need to be careful how we spend our public resources, because at the end of the day, the Kenyans that are paying these taxes are watching, and I find it unfair that we can waste Kenyans' money in the manner in which this regime is doing. But if you allow me, Sam, I just want to finish by talking about the elephant in the room on infrastructure, because I think there is something that's not being said. Because yes, we are complaining that we want to move Kenya to the next level. I think one of the problems that we face as a country, and I'll give you two quick ones, is the cost of government infrastructure. If you compare the cost of doing projects in this country to all the other countries in the region and and Africa and the world, Kenya is one of the most expensive places to do any development infrastructure. So basically that means that when we talk about budgeted corruption, it means that within the cost of doing a road, there is a lot of money input there for people to benefit from. If we solve that problem, the cost of infrastructure goes down, and therefore we can do a lot more with the little resources we have. We don't need to tax Kenyans more. We just need to be more cost effective. The other issue is the issue of parliamentary oversight, because for us to be able to do development, we have to have proper parliamentary oversight. I have always said this, I've said Parliament is dysfunctional because of the control and the overreaches of the executive. Mm-hmm. It makes no sense for an oversight committee to be chaired by a member of a party that has gone to bed with the executive. It makes absolutely no sense, because if even the standing orders and the constitution is very clear that the positions for oversighting the executive, those committees expressly set for oversight, as actually going to have an advantage of an extra member from this party which is not forming government. So if a party is in bed with the one in government, then how then can you be able to oversight that government effectively? All right. So those are the overreaches that are costing us as a country.
I want us to conclude by listening to this clip, and then Honorable Sossion, I've not forgotten you. Members of Parliament of the Committee on Security and National Administration hosted a delegation from the Office of the Deputy President to explain why they need 1.8 billion shillings more, which is 61% of their current budget.
What specific activities justify this significant increase in hospitality spending, over 100%?
Who are these new employees? What is their number in terms of the new employees, and what are they being paid? That is the kind of information we need.
The money that was appropriated for us was 150 million. We are now asking for another 100, and that's all about the expenditure on hire of choppers. We closed the financial year with that, which we reported into this committee, with 472 million spending bills, which formed again the first charge on our budgets.
All right. So there is that information that the Office of the Deputy President needs 100 million shillings more on top of 150 million to hire choppers, 350 million shillings more for hospitality, 200 million shillings more for local travel, and 345 million shillings for employees' compensation. Just to indicate here that in the financial year ending June 2025, the Office of the Deputy President had spent 475 million shillings on employee compensation. They allocate that is by media. The expenditure by media for this financial year is 572 million shillings. That is almost 100 million shillings additional resources and counting. Mheshimiwa Sossion, at a time that the top becomes very heavy in terms of expenditure and the cost, how do you explain to Kenyans that there's no money to do development?
I think looking at operations of these offices through a negative lens would not be right. The Office of the President, which is resident at State House, and the Office of the Deputy President, which is resident at Karen, has operations. These are the heartbeat centers of the leadership of this country. And for the first time, we are seeing open and serious activities in these two institutions and operations. And Matiang'i would be least qualified to criticize the current operation because he can't even account what happened. He was a Minister for Interior during the previous administration, and he cannot tell us how much was spent. And so I think looking at the operations of State House is about...
What do you mean by that?
What I mean, Matiang'i is least qualified to act as a critic of what is happening currently. And it is you have just stated that the previous administration spent over 17 billion about in
He wasn't in State House.
Matiang'i was not a State House.
Yeah, Matiang'i was CS Interior in that same government. So when the same was spent, and they cannot tell us the activities and what the money went into. But then let's come to what we have at the moment.
Yeah.
The Comptroller of State House will seek for funding in Parliament. That's a fact. And money will be appropriated by Parliament for the various activities. We have an open system, and those programs and activities will be outlined. And the money cannot be released to State House as an institution without the approval of the Comptroller of Budget. That's a fact for sure. And if there is a deficit within the financial year, the Comptroller of State House will go back to Parliament. I think let's appreciate as a country that the Office of the President, and which operates at State House, has many activities to do with leadership of this country. And the country requires effective and efficient leadership for the country. And that is what the president has been doing. And if that has attracted additional budget from the ordinary, then so be it. And this will be approved by Parliament. The president, the State House cannot compel Treasury to release money directly to State House without going through Parliament and without the approval of the Comptroller of Budget. So I think as a country, we are beginning to witness a more open State House and leadership that is open. And
what do you mean?
Course,
the Control of Budget report has always existed, Mheshimiwa Sossion.
Pardon?
The Control of Budget report has always existed. What openness
I'm
is
saying Comptroller of Budget approves. No expenditure no budget and no money can be released by Treasury without the approval of the Comptroller of Budget.
Let me ask you this question.
About Comptroller and Auditor General. So that then the question should be,
yes.
The question should be, with more money going to these two institutions of the presidency and that of the deputy president, what is the effectiveness and efficiency of leadership? What is the value that Kenyans are getting from the operations? What is the value? Of course, Parliament is here to question. We saw the representative of the office of the ODP who was asking for 100 more million. And we saw questions from members of Parliament. We've created institutions to check on that. We've created the institution of the Comptroller of
my final question for you.
We've created the institution of Comptroller and Auditor General who can generate a report for use by Parliament. So then can Parliament then play its effective role of oversighting the operations of State House? And they've done it.
Here is the question.
It's not a secret.
Here is the question.
Yeah.
So you served in the National Assembly in the previous term.
Yes, I did.
And here we are. So Parliament passed that State House should spend 8.58 billion shillings for the financial year ending June 2026.
Yes.
By the time you spend over 90% by half year, is there a problem there with our budgeting?
Yes, there's a problem because probably the programs were not properly captured. I did in previous leadership, even before I went to Parliament, pushed for review of TSC budgets.
Whose fault is that?
And of course, it is possible for a State Department to be underfunded within a financial year.
If programs are not captured, whose fault is that?
That is the fault of Parliament and State House itself, the Comptroller. If there are programs that are not captured...
Parliament approves what it receives from the requesting department, no?
You know, the way Parliament operates is that every State Department, and you know the budget cycle process is a long one.
Yes.
It's a very long one and rigorous one. And ordinarily, the State Departments, as they lobby, they don't get all the funding for all their programs.
You actually believe State House has more resources than this?
State House will require more resources.
They didn't request more resources.
And I think they must have, and probably it was not funded adequately as it should have been. We have seen on your screen Office of the Deputy President requesting for 100 more million, and they're doing it in public. And they're doing it in Parliament. It is not being done at the Treasury.
In a supplementary budget, after spending all it has been allocated.
Yes. You can spend all it has been allocated and seek for more funding if there are compelling reasons to spend. And by the way, before you spend, that money is approved by the Comptroller of Budget. So it is not an illegal process. And it means the programs are legitimate and necessary. So I think as a country, we must accept to fund State House, and we must accept to fund the Office of the Deputy President for effective leadership of this country. It is not only going to happen with the current administration, even with future administration.
All right, Mheshimiwa Sossion, what you're saying is not true, that the approval by Control of Budget proves that it's legitimate and necessary. That is not the case, because the Control of Budget only approves based on the approval from the National Treasury and confirming there's availability of funds. And there's an article that has been overused in this country, Article 223, that allows departments to use budgets that had not been foreseen. And the Control of Budget has been saying we're overusing this article, even warning that it reduces the credibility of our budgeting. That is the Control of Budget, not my words. And I think I have to close it at that point because it's past our time. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Sossion for coming. Mheshimiwa Robert Mbui for coming, as well as Fred Okango for making time for us. We are hoping that we'd have Gitonga Mukunji from Manyata constituency. He didn't make it. We'll establish what happened. Is it that the budget was not sufficient? We'll find out. My name is Sam Gituku. See you again some other time.